Ohio. Valletta, the capital of the Republic of Malta, the economic and political center of the state. Actually, the city of Valletta has the population 6444. March 2014. Of the person. That makes only 0.7% of all population of the country. While nearly 394,000 people live in suburbs. It is called in honor of the knight, the naval commander, the master of an award of Ione Jean Pariso de la Valletta, who protected the island from Turks in 1565 and founded the city later called in his honor. Prior to the beginning of the 1978 years, the name was transferred as La Valletta. Valletta is located on the northeast coast of the island of Malta, on the rocky peninsula between two natural bays of the Mediterranean Sea, Marsamxett and Grand Harbour. The part of city streets climbs Mount Scabera slopes. In the capital, the Mediterranean climate with hot dry summer. In July, temperature reaches +36°C. And dominates in the soft rainy winter. Temperature doesn't fall below +4°C. Annual rainfall, about 550 mm. In the city, as well as in the whole country, there are no rivers. Underground waters are salted by a part, therefore the population should collect rainwater for agricultural needs and to use desalination installations. Vegetation poor, generally shrubby. Some herbs are used in pharmaceutical and perfumery and cosmetic production. More than 9,000 inhabitants, who generally are Maltese, descendants of the Phoenicians in the ancient time colonizing Malta, live in Valletta. Residents talk in two languages, Maltese and English. Most of citizens profess Catholicism. Coast of the island of Malta represent the twisting line, which is cut up by a set of comfortable bays. The fact that the settlement existing on the place of modern Valletta is known since the 9th century BC. When the island was colonized by Phoenicians is explained by this geographical feature. Throughout centuries, Malta passed from hand to hand. In the 7th century BC, it belonged to Greeks, since the 6th century BC. To Carthage, since 218 our era, to Rome, then she was captured by Vandals who were replaced by Byzantines, and in 869 Arabs. The Normans who annexed in the 11th century Malta to Sicily became her last owners, having presented the island at the beginning of the 16th century to an award of Ionite. Valletta's history begins with the moment when small groups of the Maltese knights under Jean de la Valletta's leadership reflected attack of the Turkish troops which were directed to gaining the archipelago by Suleiman Velikalepni. Residents of Malta got a victory rather expensively, having led the master to the decision to create well-strengthened city which in the future will help to resist to an impact of enemies. The Great Master personally put the first stone of the new city on March 28, 1566. Generous donations allowed to conduct construction works with all Christian world very quickly. The Italian architect Francesco Leporelli, who developed the plan of Valletta and received for the first time for all history of town planning in Europe an opportunity to do everything according to norms and rules of architecture, directed construction. Special systems for removal of sewage and removal of garbage were built from the city that allowed to conduct works without accumulating construction waste. Planning of streets was made in such a way that the sea breeze, getting everywhere, purified air, creating effective conditioning. The special department of city planning existing to this day, which rigidly regulated everything that belonged to building, was at once created. Department, it was offered to put houses along one line, to decorate them on corners with sculptures, and in the yard to arrange a well for collecting rainwater. It was forbidden to park gardens before facades. Along with construction of housing and public buildings, engineering defensive works around the capital were created. Cavalier Eviatogo of Iron, San Telmo's Fort and others. In 5 years these works were finished, including dug out the wide ditch which separated Valletta from the main part of the island. Length of a ditch was 1,000 meters, depth of 18 meters, and width -20 meters. Since 1570 city building was continued by the pupil Leporelli Girolamo Casar. Under his management in Valletta palaces and churches were built. In Valletta trade, crafts and art developed. Decoration of Valletta was promoted by the fact that, having got rid of threat of the Turkish conquerors, the Maltese knights soon began to care for comfort of own accommodation and were engaged in construction of luxurious mansions and palaces. In the city, gardens and parks were laid out. In 1798 the knights who lost fighting spirit and discipline couldn't and didn't want to fight back Napoleon's troops. On the contrary, many of them accorded to the emperor an enthusiastic reception as they had the French roots. This similar behavior of knights helped Valletta to avoid destructions and to keep the primitive shape. In 1800 Valletta together with all island passed to British and remained under their power till 1974. During World War II the city underwent serious destructions because of raids of the German aircraft. Since 1974 Valletta became the official capital of the Republic of Malta, which gained independence. Cultural value. Early in the morning 1967 on the notorious street known to generations of the British military personnel, especially to the seamen leaving on the coast, as gut. Bars and brothels was enough, and fights were a commonplace. But his popularity never fell. Central near City Street, Republiki Street, which received the name in 1974. Earlier it was called San Giorgio's Harvest Season, and at British Kingvere the Harvest Season Real. The last name was mentioned in the novel by Jules Verne, The Archipelago on Fire. Passes through the centre and halves the city, coming to an end at the fort of St. Elmo, which was one of the main protective forts of Valletta. Today in a fort the military museum is located. Building of Republiki Street represents a bright example of the South European style. City Gate bring on Liberty Square, where on the right Cavalier Asviety James's Tower is located. After her there is a knightly farmstead of Obers di Casti, which is the residence of the Prime Minister of Malta. Opposite to Liberty Square there is Ferrari's Palace, one of the most beautiful palaces built in style of the Italian classics, in which armory of knights was placed earlier. It is possible to see the building of the Royal Opera slightly further. Opera's de Provence building, built in 1574 during government of Knights of the Award Gospitalerov, was the center of public life of Malta and was called the Union Club. Now here the National Museum of Archaeology is located. Republiki Street crosses several areas. The area of the Great Siege, the area of the Republican Palace Square where there is a Palace of the Great Master which was under construction during the period from 1570 to 1580. Now in this building the residence of the President and Parliament of the Republic of Malta is placed. The part of halls of the palace is open for visit by tourists. In Valletta, the only university in the whole country founded in 1769 and which gained world recognition for quality of teaching medical sciences, is located. Also there the first Anglican cathedral on the island street. Paul's Cathedral is located. From other sites it should be noted Casa Piccola, one of the last not reconstructed palaces on Malta, and Church of Jesuits, one of the oldest churches of the city. Every year in January the International Festival of Baroque Music in Valletta is held. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.